Have you ever thought about having a greenhouse of your own? Maybe you asked yourself, should I buy a greenhouse or maybe build one? Or maybe you wondered, what would a greenhouse even do for me? What would I use it for? I mean, just the idea of having a greenhouse is exciting, right? Hi, and welcome to our 2-acre world. When it comes to homesteading and greenhouses, there's a lot of different ways to get to the end result you may be looking for. A greenhouse should serve a purpose, your purpose. Are you looking to create a relaxing space to unplug and just enjoy the peace that being surrounded by greenery can bring? Maybe you're looking to grow flowers or protect sensitive plants. Or maybe you're like us and you want a greenhouse to produce food and extend your growing season. Unlike people showing you their incredible gardens loaded with produce when they live in San Diego, where the weather and the soil are perfect and even the worst gardener can succeed, many of us have to consider the elements and conditions that we deal with. Here in north central Arizona, we have to contend with heat in the high 90s in the summer, along with monsoonal rains with hail. At 5,200 feet elevation, we have snowy winters with temperatures in the low teens. And in the spring, we deal with regular 40-mile-an-hour plus winds. We needed a greenhouse to handle all of these challenges. The typical store-bought greenhouse was not going to work for us. We've seen what happens to these lightweight greenhouses, and it's not pretty. So we decided to build our own. We chose this location on the property for a few reasons. By using the shipping container that was already here for storage as the fourth wall on the north, it saved on material cost and labor time. It was also perfectly south-facing to get the maximum sun in the wintertime. Let me show you how we built our custom greenhouse. Check it out.
So the first thing we did was decide that the size of the greenhouse was going to be 9 foot wide by 20 foot long, 20 foot being the length of the container. We dug the foundations by hand. It wasn't too bad. I did purchase a very inexpensive cement mixer at Harbor Freight, and I've gotten a tremendous amount of use out of it. So I started laying block. I am not a bricklayer by any means, but I just pulled some straight lines, pulled some lines level, and got it squared up and started laying block. Once all the block was complete, I went back and backfilled the cinder block and put in some anchor bolts for my bottom plate for the wood framing that would come later. I did experiment with a couple different designs. I prototyped them in some PVC so I could have some flexibility. You'll see the front one there was a round experiment. I did some mathematical computations and discovered that if I had a specific angle for my longitude and latitude, I could pick up the most sun possible at the winter solstice when the sun was the lowest in the wintertime. So I built a pony wall down at the bottom. Once we got our first truss, if you will, our first joist up, there again, I'm not a carpenter, I'm not exactly sure what you call these, but I went ahead and duplicated these in all of the angles, and they're simply resting at the top of the container for now. I got some L brackets and cut a block of wood on my miter saw at the same angle as the 2x4s were coming off the container. Hit them with a sledgehammer, bent them into the angle that they needed to be, and I got out my handy dandy welder. If you have any size homestead, I would recommend buying one of these small welders. This is what's called a flux core. It's a wire feed welder. It doesn't require any gas in terms of welding gas, not gasoline. It's all electric. It plugs into a 110 volt outlet, and it has worked absolutely perfect for me for the small projects. I then proceeded to weld on these little angle brackets, and that's going to attach to the container permanently, and then it's going to screw into the trusses up above. I took some expanding foam and shot it into the joint where the wood framing met the container. The next thing I did is I needed a very strong backing to the plastic that I was going to use, the greenhouse plastic that I'm going to put on this. So I opted for these cattle panels from Tractor Supply. They're 50 inches by 16 feet long, under $30 a piece. I laid 3 horizontally, one after the other heading up, and then I placed another one vertically, so that ended up with 4. This is from the inside. And then I had the inspectors come out. Just kidding, these are just my cats thinking it's a toy I'm building for them. The next thing I did was get some 90-degree flashing. This might be used for stucco. I'm not even sure what this flashing was for. All I know is that I needed to cover up the edges of the cattle panels because I'm going to lay my plastic over this, and I didn't want any edges, sharp edges, for my plastic to get torn on. I framed the back wall, and then I moved in my IBC tote. This IBC tote is going to be used for a future aquaponics system. I do have a video on that if you want to check that one out, about raising your own fish for food. I then took 2x4 wire fencing and stapled that to the ends. And then I borrowed a airless paint sprayer from a friend of mine, and it's going to look like I'm randomly, chaotically spraying here, and in a way I am, but what I was trying to achieve was to get all of the metal of the cattle panels covered, which I did successfully. And then it ended up this beautiful green color that I was looking for, top to bottom, inside and out. The next thing we needed to move on to was the greenhouse plastic. Now I got this from Farmhouse Plastics. I'll put a link down below. I got this for a number of different reasons. At the big box stores, the only thickness of plastic, the largest thickness of plastic I could find was 6 mil. I had built smaller little enclosed areas using this plastic for greenhouses in the wintertime, and found that before winter was complete, the plastic did not hold up. It was tearing, it was rotting, it was coming apart, and it became a maintenance nightmare to just try to salvage this stuff to complete winter. I didn't want to deal with that anymore, so I went with this string reinforced, UV resistant 10 mil clear greenhouse plastic sheeting. I'm going on my 3rd season. I have 0 issues with this plastic. I did get it in one solid sheet, and I didn't want any seams anywhere for wind or weather to infiltrate. So I got it larger than I needed. Of course, it's easy cutting it off. It's heck cutting it back on, right? My son and I got on top of the container. This was the easiest way to work with this plastic, and we carefully unfolded it and carefully pushed it down. And then my wife joined us from down below, and we carefully, so as not to snag anything or tear anything, pull this plastic across. And you're going to see we're going to pull plenty to each edge, and I did have a lot extra, but that's okay. It was better than coming up short. Now this is a cold winter morning that we're doing this project. It's just a matter of timing. You can't always get everything done when you want to. So you can see it's bundled up there. It's pretty chilly, and we got out very early in hopes of beating the wind. So we got it completely stretched out where we wanted it. And the next thing we needed to do was to fasten it down. So I ripped some 1x2s out of 2x4s, ripped those down, and my wife teak oiled them to preserve them from any weather issues. And then we proceeded to fasten them down, but as we were starting this portion of the project, of course, our notorious winds came up and caused a lot of difficulty. I did end up with a couple of wrinkles that I'm not real happy about, but it's just way too difficult to try to correct at this point. And this has been up for a couple of seasons now, and honestly, I don't even look at it anymore. So we got these all fastened down with these 1x2s. You can see it completely wrapped there. There's the sides. You can see the 2x4 fencing metal up underneath the plastic on the sides there. This was kind of a christening, if you will, of the plastic by cutting open the doorway and stepping inside. And it was really cold this morning, so it was nice to get into that toasty environment. It's amazing how quickly it heats up. The trick for these greenhouses is the nighttime and trying to keep that heat in. The next step was to temporarily fasten the plastic around the door frame. And then I took 1x4s, placed it over the plastic. That's going to hold it tight, as well as create a door frame of sorts. Then took 2x2s and cut them to fit, screwed them together and created a doorway. I then covered that with the same 2x4 metal that was on the sides, and I then covered it in the same plastic. I needed a door handle and I couldn't find anything I really liked, and I thought, you know, what if I just make one? So I grabbed a 2x4 and started carving, and the next thing I know, I ended up with this cool, very rustic door handle that works very well, and I'm really happy with. And here's the inside, sealed up. IBC tote for the future aquaponics system in place. Next thing I did was start on a raised bed. What you see here are the initial 1x4s that I had staked in. I later changed this to 2x6. The 1x4 just wasn't deep enough, wasn't going to be strong enough, and I pulled it out and changed it. And I did want to dress up the front a little bit, so I got some pallet wood and dressed up the front. It actually turned out pretty nice, I think. I like it. So summertime can be extremely hot in the greenhouse. So there are some different methods of cooling as well as there are heating in the wintertime. For this summer, I chose this 40% shade cloth. I got a 10 by 20 foot piece of it because that would cover most of the top and completely side to side. I ran some steel cables, put them on some anchors and put them through the grommets that came with this and just pull it across as needed, which is pretty much the entire summer. There's not a single day that this gets removed after the heat hits here. I also needed very, very much an exhaust fan. I actually think I'm going to probably purchase a second one of these. I'll put a link for this fan down below. It's got aluminum shutters that pop out automatically when the fan starts pulling. It does do a very good job. However, I think I'm going to go to 2 of these. So here's the fan that I picked. It's a 14-inch exhaust fan. We needed to keep the door open, of course, to be able to pull some cool air in there to exhaust some of the heat. And discovered right away that the chickens decided that it was an open door policy and could help themselves to whatever was growing in the greenhouse. So that wasn't going to work. So I just took some hardware cloth, built a screen, same shape as the door, and assembled that. Put a magnet with a piece of metal onto the door for a catch. Here's a shot of the inside of the greenhouse this year with different types of tomatoes and chilies, which are doing very, very well. We're able to grow these in the greenhouse in the summertime. We need a real heat-tolerant plants for this because it does get warm in there even with the ventilation. And the hatch chilies are doing excellent, and I can't wait to use some of those. And just by chance, by picking this location and using that shipping container as the fourth wall that I didn't have to build, this tree ended up right in the right spot. So when it is leafed out in the summertime, about 2 or 3 o'clock, you can see where it's covering a good majority of the greenhouse with shade, which has worked out absolutely fantastic. That was just by the luck of the draw on that one. I would like to say I planned it that way, but I didn't. Now this same tree will lose all of its leaves in the wintertime, allowing for all that sun to penetrate and heat that greenhouse up. So this did work out really well. So we have had up to 6 or 8 inches of snow on this. This is not that amount of snow. It's just a shot to give you an example of what happens here in the wintertime. And it has held up perfectly. It's very, very strong. I can hang from those rafters. I can hang from those cattle panels. It has endured these incredibly high winds and has stayed solid as a rock. So this is completely custom, of course. Your greenhouse could be nothing like this. The point is that if you are concerned about buying a store-bought greenhouse, which I was because I seen them destroyed throughout my neighborhood. It's a regular thing to have people post how their greenhouses, trampolines, yard furniture, etc. go launching, especially during our spring winds. This worked out ideally for us, for our situation.
This video has been about how we built our greenhouse to suit our specific needs. Our seasons, our winds, our snow, our heat, our property, and our goals. Our greenhouse goal is simple: to extend our growing season longer as winter begins and to get an early start as winter ends. We hope the greenhouse will give us an additional 6 weeks of growing time. Listen, we're both in our 60s and have no delusions about what we're capable of. I suffered a major heart attack followed by a stroke in October of 23, and my wife struggles with serious asthma. We understand our abilities and our limitations. Maybe you can relate. The world is a difficult place and is getting worse. Don't fool yourself into thinking that things are going to remain the same, because they're not. And don't be one of the people caught unprepared. Remember what I say, be prepared, not scared. I'll put out a follow-up video to this one that will be about the additions to the inside and the outside of the greenhouse, including our aquaponics system for raising our own fish for food, additional ways to heat and cool the greenhouse, solar and wind power, and maybe even moving our microgreens out here. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss that one. Share with us down in the comments what challenges you face where you are and how a greenhouse could help you grow more food. If you like this cool greenhouse t-shirt we designed, My Other House is a Greenhouse, I'll put a link for it in the description along with some other greenhouse shirt designs you may like. And if you like this video, be sure to plant your finger on that like button and check this one out next. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. We hope this video has helped and inspired you on your greenhouse journey. Feel free to share this video with someone you know. Thanks for joining us at our 2-Acre World. We'll see you in the next video. Now go grow something. Have a blessed day.